I remember these little moments where I was happy and I felt in control. I felt like the world wasn't, all a dark and scary place. I grew up living with my grandmother and my dad. My grandmother was already past the years of raising kids. Then we showed up on her doorstep and she took us in, and she was my mother for the first 13 years of my life. She loved us and provided for us, and she did the best that she could, even with her health. My dad worked in construction, and he worked really hard. He just had an addiction that was very strong. My dad struggled with alcohol. He struggled with drugs. I know that I was loved and cared for. It just looked very different than a lot of the friends that I had at school. I was laying on the couch taking a nap, and then I remember the pastor from our church showed up. And he shared with me and my two brothers that my dad had died from a heart attack, from a drug overdose. My oldest brother left home. My brother Josh and I stayed, and we were living with my grandmother. She had us in church. We were learning about Jesus. We were learning about truths of the gospel. And I remember thinking, I can't rely on people I can see. I felt like they kept leaving. I just knew there's no way that I can really rely on something I can't see. My grandmother, she was in her 60s, and she had smoked for a good portion of her life. Her health just drastically declined. She realized she couldn't just take care of us alone anymore. We had to move in with my great aunt, which was her sister. We had to switch schools, we switched churches. I just remember moving in there and thinking, what is this world that we're wrapped up in? I just felt upended. My great aunt walked in the room and I heard her yelling about my grandmother not breathing. They got her to the hospital and she was put on a ventilator to help with her breathing, but it turned out that her lung had collapsed. We went to the hospital to go and see her, and she was just covered with wires. I remember asking her, "Are you going to leave us?" I look back now and think that probably wasn't the best thing to ask your grandmother who's laying in this hospital bed, Brandy, but I needed to know. I was surviving, and I needed to know what was coming next so that I could prepare for it. And she wrote down on her legal pad, "It is well." And those were the only 3 words she responded with, and that was the very last thing that she told me. The last thing she leaves me with is hope, is it's okay. I'm gonna be okay. You can keep going, keep living life. When someone in your life dies, like my dad and my grandmother, there's a piece of you that feels abandoned, a piece of you that feels left behind. My great aunt and uncle were kind enough to allow us to stay there, but we fought a lot with them because we were hurting. We had lost every parent that we knew. And so all of a sudden, it was me and my brother against the world. Deep down, there was always this, I need to make sure I'm in good standing. I need to appeal to people. I need to make them like me. I need to make sure that they're not gonna just leave and disappear. We didn't know where we were gonna be. My aunt and uncle sat me and my brother down, and they said, there's a family in the church. They want you to come live with them. And I remember being so hopeful, what family is it? Who wants us? Just so innocent, but the deep question of wanting to belong somewhere. We moved into their home, and we were in their home for a total of 9 months. And I was still acting out in ways that very deeply show the level of trauma we had walked through. And I was asking for love, but in very abnormal ways. That 9 months was a time that I truly did begin to think about God in a different way. And I think in that time, That faith that had always been presented to me as a little girl became my faith. There had been another family in our church, and they had expressed that they wanted to be our forever family. I remember walking into their home the day that we moved in. And I was so unsure, and I was so hesitant, and I didn't really know how to feel about it. But I knew I needed to survive, and I needed to just keep going. And this was another step in the path to do that. And we sat on the couch, and Mike, who is Dad now, he slammed the front door behind us, and I jumped, like startled in my seat. And I like turned around and look at him, and he kind of walks through the living room, and he throws up his hands and he says, "That door is shut and you're not going anywhere else." Part of me, I wanted to not believe that, because people leave. People, whether it's through death or through different circumstances, people leave. I had a lineup in my mind of all of the people that had let me down and all of the people that had hurt me. And I felt in some way pieces of me were taken away that I couldn't get back. I still have to protect myself. I still have to save the parts of me that are left. At the root of everything, I've just wanted love and acceptance. I've wanted to be received for who I am, and I wanted to be told, "You are worth something." Half of me wanted to have hope. I wanted to believe that I could finally trust someone other than myself and my brother. And so we moved in with this family, and I started to breathe. Little bit by little bit, the Lord started mending my heart and mending those places in me that were so broken. The Lord, He has never once left my side in this story. No matter how alone I felt, no matter how unloved or unwanted I felt, I searched for so long for something that couldn't be found where I was searching. The Lord just keeps bringing me back to, your worth is not found in any of these humans that you are looking at. Your worth is found in me. You're worthy because I deem you worthy. Looking at the gospel and looking at the fact that despite my sin and my trauma and my darkness, Jesus said, "I love you and I care for you so much that I will be traumatized. I will be beaten. I will be separated from my father. I will be abandoned by my father so that you can be healed." His goodness is more than the moment that I'm living in. His goodness it's an arc over all of my history, over all of my future. His goodness means that I am not alone and that I am fully part of His family. And so when I ask the Lord every time, am I worthy? Do I have worth? The answer is always yes.